With reactions trailing the suspension of Senator Natasha Akpoti Uduaghan, lawmaker representing Kogi Central, despite an order of the Federal High Court restraining the Senate from proceeding with a purported investigation against Senator Akpoti Uduaghan. The Senate Committee on Ethics, Code of Conduct, and Public Relations moved to suspend Akpoti Uduaghan for 6 months over alleged violation of the Red Chamber's rules.
Prayer 1. Yes. That the Senate do suspend Senator Natasha Akpoti Uduaghan for 6 months for a total violation of the Senate Standing Rules 2023 as amended for bringing the presiding officer and the entire Nigerian Senate in general to a public opprobrium. Those in support of prayer 1 say aye. Aye. Those against say nay. I'd put the question. Those in support of prayer 1 say aye. Aye. Those against say nay. The ayes have it.
Senator Senate President Godswill Akpabio there being the judge and jury in his own case. We know that the Senate has asked her to apologize, or they're saying that they might lift the suspension if she apologizes, which is very debatable at this point. The conversation is huge. But let me read some of the moves by the panel, if we can pull that up really quickly. Well, the recommendations of the Senate panel on Natasha Akpoti's seating arrangement, I'll read them. They say, 1, the Senate panel recommends the suspension of Natasha Akpoti Uduaghan from all legislative activities effective March 6, 2025. 2, her office should be locked and she must hand over all Senate properties in her possession to the clerk of the National Assembly for the duration of the suspension. 3, neither the suspension nor her staff should be seen within the premises of the National Assembly during the suspension period. Her salaries, allowances, and those of her legislative aides should be suspended, along with the withdrawal of all security detail for the duration of the suspension. 5, she should be barred from representing herself locally or internationally as a senator of the Federal Republic of Nigeria during the suspension. 6, the Senate Committee on Ethics, Privileges, and Public Petitions recommended a 6-month suspension for the lawmaker representing Kogi Central. I thought it was important to read this out for our viewers who are just tuning in at this moment. But I believe Senator Orji Uzo Kalu had stopped, that, is it order 4 or which one was it? Allowing her staff probably to be able to, to be paid. But I think what we should question here is the fact that, her salary is being withdrawn at the same time that for her suspension. Many have argued that, other senators that were suspended still received their salaries. So, that's one of the biggest questions that we should ask here at this moment. But let me take a reaction to this story. This is from Shehu Sani, who wrote, "When I publicly disclosed the salaries and allowances of the senators, it nearly earned me a 6-month suspension. If not for divine intervention of Saraki and Ekore Madu's immediate rescue, just know that if you are there and you blow a whistle too loudly, you will be on your own. No senator will bring him head or neck to support you." And that is what played out yesterday, because it appeared that Natasha was on her own. Well, following her suspension, the Kogi Central lawmaker was escorted out of the chambers by the sergeant-at-arms. But before she left, she declared that this injustice will not be sustained.
This injustice will not be sustained. The pursuit for justice.
She was about to speak there. They turned off her mic. She was not allowed to be heard before the petition was delivered as well. What sort of injustice was that? Let me take Obieze Kwetili's tweet. She wrote, "I hope those senators in the chamber of the Nigerian Senate today and the ones who conveniently disappeared all heard the last word of their inspiringly bold and unbowed colleague, Senator Natasha Akpoti Uduaghan. She courageously said, as she left the chamber today, this injustice shall not be sustained. The wise among them will be haunted by this until her words surely come to pass. The unwise among them will not even understand what she said. For all of us that care about our democratic process and principle, we're glad that she said what she said, a woman like Senator Natasha Akpoti Uduaghan. And that really is how I want to start this conversation about what appeared to be injustice at the floor of the Senate yesterday. Rufy.
Okay. I want to talk facts this morning. A lot of facts. So I'll throw them around. Number one, injustice. It appears it's a matter of fact. How is it a matter of fact? The Senate Committee, Chairman on Ethics, violated the Nigerian Constitution yesterday. There was a court order served on him that the case should not go on until, I think they variated on the 10th of March, thereabout. But they said, the National Assembly takes preeminence more than the court process. I'll read what the Nigerian Constitution says. Section 4, Section 8, Judicial Review, Legislative Powers. This section states explicitly, the exercise of National Assembly powers or the State House of Assembly powers is subject to judicial review. Nigerian Constitution, not my opinion, not Rufai talking. Nigerian Constitution, the ground norm. Section 6, Section 6(6)(b), judicial powers extend to all actions and decisions. This grants the judicial authority to adjudicate all matters, including all disputes involving the National Assembly. The Senator Masue violated this because, as quoted in a Tribune newspaper, he said the National Assembly takes preeminence. Based on this, they didn't hear our side of the story. There was no fair hearing. And they wrote their reports hastily. The question you ask is, why did they hastily write the report? Because they wanted to nail her. And they read the report out, indicting her, without hearing her own side of the story in this. I mean, we've seen more egregious scandal. People were given the right of reply. You remember the case of Senator Elisha Abu, when he had the sex toy something? Yes, yeah. He was given the right of reply. We even remembered how he was shouting on the First Lady now during his session. And I think that session, where he was subjected to the Ethics Committee, was broadcast live. We saw excerpt of that. We saw the excerpt of the interchange. So Senator Natasha Akpoti also asked that this section should be broadcasted live, but no, they said no. They will not put it live. Secondly, I know you're already giving me the eyes. Secondly, is the case of harassment, sexual harassment. Finally, they've put that one. We'll see if they're going to investigate it. So everything looks like a witch hunt. And it is obvious and it is clear as regards that. So these are facts. People can controvert them if they want.
Well, before I come to you, Ayo, the First Lady of Nigeria has broken her silence on the feud between Senate President Godswill Akpabio and Natasha Akpoti Uduaghan over the sexual harassment allegations. While speaking to journalists ahead of International Women's Day, the First Lady said the Senate chamber should be a place of honor, not controversy, and urged Nigerian women to assert themselves in leadership positions by shutting down any form of sexual harassment. Let's look.
I believe that Senate is doing what is needful because that's what it is. It's an inside place and it's a matured chambers. We shouldn't be hearing things like that. It's a matured chamber and it should be treated with respect. It's an honor for you to be in that place alone. I was there for 12 years. Even in my younger days, and I'm still trying to look young, But people compliment you all the time. Only that, just put your place in yourself. Women, raise yourself high. Don't be in a position that men will be talking to you. You can always shut them down before they start. So all the very best. Keep doing your best. Happy International Women's Day.
Happy International Women's Day to Senator Remi Tinubu, First Lady of Nigeria. So many takeaways from her comments there, one of which, she said that the Senate House is what? What did she say again? for mature people, and it's supposed to be for mature minds. And the second, which we'll discuss after I take some tweets, is the fact that she said, you know, you'd have to find ways to shut men down before they sexually harass you. I mean, that's a comment from First Lady of Nigeria. Let me take Rinu Oduwala's tweet. She wrote, 9 years ago, she was also disrupting and creating controversy in the Nigerian Senate. She pulled up an old video. Let's take a look at that video.
Colleagues, order. Why I'm taking order. Order, distinguished Senator Tinubu. Somebody's on the floor. Mr. President, distinguished colleagues, why I'm taking us through this thing is because the nation is watching us.
All right, we said nations. I mean, there you have it. I mean, we are not at all encouraging, you know, the sort of disruptiveness on the show. We have talked about decorum and how important it is for the senators to show decorum when they are on the floor of the Senate. And that really is the main point. I mean, what is good for the goose is good for the gander. I'd like a comment from you because I'd like to also touch more on the issues that were raised about sexual harassment.
Thank you. So when this matter started, one of the people that some Nigerians had called on to speak up was the First Lady, Senator Remi Tinubu. One, because of her position as the First Lady of the nation and a woman who has positioned herself as a women's rights gender advocate. And then second as well, because of her history and experience as having been a senator of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, a woman at that. So it was expected that she would understand some of the peculiarities of the challenges that women in the chambers face and be able to speak objectively to this matter. Unfortunately, I'm not sure if people would feel if some people might not feel disappointed by some of the comments made by her, with due respect. And I say this because more than ever, she understands how tensions can get high and how, as a woman in a place where you're in the minority, you feel the need to speak up for your rights. We saw, thank God that the internet never forgets, and we saw that video. In fact, remember how that debacle between her and Senator Dino Melaye went on for so long that Dino Melaye came to Lagos on body loan and said he was in front of her house, let her do her worst. And a lot of Nigerians spoke up for her and spoke up for the injustice at this point. And she herself didn't need a lot of voices. Look at when they were shouting, order, order, she asserted herself.
Yes.
Thankfully for her, no one invited her to come before an ethics committee to defend her actions in the chambers. I wonder what the difference between that time and now is. One, was it a question of the leadership at the time? The fact that the leader was able to understand her stance and wasn't the leader in the direct eye of the storm, so he was able to be objective in this matter. Because that's the conversation we're also having, and I'm glad you said that, a judge and a jury in his own matter. Senator Akpoti is a principal actor in this situation. He ought to has been advised by well-meaning Nigerians to at least recuse himself. I said earlier on, even if it were for the optics alone, to show that in the chambers, things are done properly, and I'm a man of integrity. Therefore, I'm willing to subject myself to investigation to prove the fact that I am not, all these things you've said. But unfortunately, that didn't happen. What made matters worse is that it seemed as if her voice was further oppressed and depressed because she wasn't allowed to speak at all. She had to put in the mic, and then her mic was switched off, and she was unceremoniously walked out. It doesn't speak well at all for Nigeria or for women. And I said it earlier, 4 down to 3. Yes. I hope the other 3 female senators will survive in the House where it has become a gentleman's club.
That's
it's very sad to hear this.
Very, very sad. And I just wanted also, because yesterday we discussed the topic of sexual harassment and the definition of sexual harassment. And I got some responses. I'd like to read that before I come to you. And this is a response I got from Instagram. And this person wrote, "Hello, good morning, OG. On your show this morning, What's Trending, after defining the term sexual harassment, you went ahead to say that if a lady dresses in a transparent or body-bearing clothing, that it does not concern the men. That if he looks at her somehow, it can amount to sexual harassment. How quickly did you forget that sexual harassment is not peculiar to one gender? The man can also be sexually harassed by a woman. Remember that men are moved by what they see. If a woman dresses as to invite a man to look at her, she's sexually harassing the men. Inasmuch as anyone can dress as it pleases him or her to social events, it is not so for official events and workplaces. We're all parents, and whatever side we take, it will affect our own children of the opposite gender. And this is from Mwadi. I believe Mwadi missed the session when we talked about the fact that it goes both ways. So because Natasha Akpoti Udraha was the topic and she was female, we concentrated on her topic. Of course, we have advocated here, and you also said it, Dr. Abati, yesterday, that it goes both ways. You teach your men, you're smiling, you teach your men how to behave, you teach your women how to behave as well. But also, let me just, again, read the definition of sexual harassment before I come to you, Dr. Abati. Sexual harassment is unwelcome sexual behavior that makes someone feel uncomfortable or humiliated. It can include physical, verbal, or visual actions. Sexual harassment is a form of sexual violence, which includes any sexual activity. This is a separate definition from which I read yesterday, and I wanted to make sure that we have that as well. Dr. Abati, over to you.
I think the issues are as follows. Yes. Earlier on today, I said that, look, beyond the melodrama on the table or on the floor of the National Assembly, I think that the major thing here is that in terms of the conversation, public attention has been drawn afresh, regardless of whatever attitude anybody has towards it, about certain fundamental issues, about misogyny, or if you like, you call it sexual harassment, about the place of women in politics, and also about, the conduct of persons representing Nigeria at the highest levels. Those are issues of debate that will not go away. That these are issues that Nigeria will return to again and again about women representation and their place in politics. So in terms of issues, those are, live subjects that we'll continue to deal with. That may well be the game of the whole of this melodrama. Now to the substantive issue. Under Section 60 of the 1999 Constitution, the Senate has the right, or the National Assembly, if you like, to make its own rules for the conduct of its own affairs. But the same Constitution of Nigeria, also recognizes the separation of powers. Principle established by Baron de Montesquieu in 1745 in an essay titled The Spirit of Law. The spirit of law, that is separate, sections of government, the legislature, the executive, the legislature, and the judiciary. They are separate, but they can work together to defend the spirit of the pedantic. Quickly, if Mrs. Akpoti Uduaghan feels that she has been served badly, there is injustice, she still has the right under the constitutions of Nigeria to seek redress where her rights may have been violated. And that's why she has already even filed a case dealing with fundamental human rights enforcement. Because even when you say there is separation of powers, you cannot abuse the rights of an individual. The court can inquire into that. But the precedent is that even the judiciary cannot dictate to the legislature. And, that's the principle under those three sections. However, the court knows what to do. We're told that Justice Iguatu's court is going to sit today. If there's been any violation of the law on the part of the Senate insisting on its own rules and its rights under Section 60, the court can charge them for contempt, can charge the chairman of that committee for contempt. That, I think, is the major issue. Yeah. But this conversation will continue. Rights where they've been violated should be defended. And I see that you are concerned about Mrs. Other persons who were suspended collected their salaries.
That's the point.
I feel it's fair. Maybe they should allow her to have a salary. whether she needs it or not. You know, but it's just unfortunate that the people who have been served the short end of the stick in this are the people of Kogi Central that she's representing. Because for as long as she's on suspension, nobody will be there to defend their interests from Kogi Central.
Absolutely. In terms of Senator Remi Tinubu's comments, where she talked about trying to prevent sexual harassment before it happens. And, you know, to go back to that comment from that Instagram user who talked about the fact that, you know, when I said if you go out and your skin is showing or your, you know, your dress is the man's fault, it's also the woman's fault. I mean, do you understand that people in Saudi Arabia get raped, get sexually harassed, and they are fully clothed? So it really doesn't have anything to do with what you're wearing. Like, this is what the point I'm trying to establish. It really doesn't have anything to do with how you appear. It has to do with what the person does to you. And that's really the point. Whether it's a man or a woman, because I've seen women who sexually harass men. I've seen, you know, men who...
Nigerian men
yes,
will be glad.
Yes, I've seen that. I've seen that.
I want to make a point.
Yes, go ahead. Because it's such an important...
Sexual harassment
is
in the mind.
Yes.
And please, it's not about what the person wears.
Yes, yeah.
There are beautiful looking women.
Right.
That... goodness me, in the mind of some men, they've sexually harassed.
Yes.
They use the image of those women for their personal sexual activities, which is a wrong one. I mean, I don't want to masturbate on this topic too much.
Yeah. No, give us empirical facts
on
the subject.
So, with due respect, Dr. Abati, I will give you empirical facts.
Yes.
There are men that take pictures of beautiful looking women and use to commit acts of, you know, personal, you know, sexual sensationalizing of their organs and their fantasy and their organs. The woman does not even need to wear anything sometimes. And that's why we need to condemn it. It's in the mind of the person.
Right.
So when the person now exhibits it by making attempts, then we need to condemn it. It's not about what the woman wears in the first place.
Absolutely. Thank you for saying
that.
that.
It's not about what the woman wears.
But we here are encouraging our daughters to dress perfectly.
Better.
Like, you know, we're not saying that you should go out wearing, you know, don't free the nipple.
Yeah, don't do that.
We always encourage decent dressing on Arise News. Well, we'll take this story now. The Federal Competition and Consumer Protection Commission on Wednesday filed charges against MultiChoice Nigeria, alleging multiple violations of consumer protection laws and imposing a price hike without adequately informing the consumers. Some of the key allegations include unfair subscription practices and the implementation of unfair billing systems and subscription models that is of a disadvantage to consumers. The FCCPC is pursuing legal action which could lead to significant penalties or restrictions on MultiChoice's operation in Nigeria. Dr. Abati, 30 seconds really quickly on the story. I wanted to highlight this because it affects all
talk about
the users.
The need for consumer protection in Nigeria. And the FCCPC was established to protect the consumer. Now, when Babatunde Urukera was there, you know, this was a major issue. Now, we have our colleague, former chairman of the editorial board of this day newspaper, former commissioner for environment in Lagos State, Tunji Bello, as the man in charge. Now, what has happened is that the FCCPC has gone to the Federal High Court of Lagos and 3-count charges against MultiChoice and John Ugbe, the MD, for violating FCCPC Act, sections 30, 110, 119, punishable under sections 159, sub 3 and 4 of the same FCCC Act of 2018. Now, what are the allegations? That they told them to hold on, but they went ahead and increased tariffs. But those tariffs have already been increased. So why is the FCCPC acting after the fact? Because we are now paying more already for the tariffs. What is the excuse that MultiChoice is given? Inflation, difficult business environment, which is the same excuse that other businesses are giving, that this is a very difficult environment to do business. Landlords have increased rent. other people have increased prices. Schools have increased prices. GSK and Sanofi, they have left Nigeria because of this difficult environment. Okay, why the target on multi-choice? This is not the first time that multi-choice will be taken to court. They are also doing business in this environment. Finally, I recall Babatunde Urukera again. He said in his time, I think it was on this station or another one, that FCCPC does not fix prices, but that there is a clause in the act that says, okay, they can for a temporary period fix prices, but they will have to recommend to the president and get approval. 2, it says people are confusing pay as you go in telecom with pay as you view, which is different. So this subject has been dealt with before. Maybe FCCPC should look at his own books and see what that same body had decided on this matter before now. And why multi-choice? Why don't they take landlords to court?
Well, all right.
They should take landlords to court. And schools, private schools.
I don't know why you're pointing at me about private schools.
Private schools, I agree.
Well, all right.